that you've shared with me this evening. Last year, my husband and I had the privilege of attending an annual national meeting of the Boy Scouts of America. It was a little breakfast gathering in Jacksonville, Florida. 2,000 people. There were scouting families, leaders, supporters. As our son Mike was presented with the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award, he told about his scouting journey and how it has affected his career, his choices, and his life. We were proud of our son's accomplishments, of course, and continue to be proud of his accomplishments, but we were prouder still of his comments that morning. He told a story. Well, first of all, he said that he would not be where he is today without scouting, and that is so true. But he told a story about a 16-year-old boy, a 16-year-old Boy Scout who dove into the bottom of a deep pool and saved a man's life, pulled him to the top, and administered a life-saving procedure on this man. Well, this 16-year-old Boy Scout was Mike's younger brother, and his name is Scott, and he didn't even mention his heroics until later that evening at dinner. And probably you all experienced the same thing, but dinner time was the only time our family was together on many days because of activities pulling everyone in different directions. So, as was our custom, either John or I asked the children, well, how was your day? What did you do today? So when it was Scott's turn, he said, well, I might have saved a guy's life today. Very nonchalantly, like pass the ketchup. You know. Mike looked at his brother in that audience last summer in Jacksonville as he touched the Distinguished Eagle Scout medal that was hanging around his neck that he had just been presented with. So he fondled the necklace and he held it up. And he said to everybody, my brother Scott doesn't have one of these. But my brother Scott saved a man's life. And Mike said, some people have medals, and some people have metal. And everyone applauded. I could cry now when I think about it. But everybody applauded for Scott, who is not used to hearing applause. They didn't applaud for Mike, but they applauded for Scott, which was really cool. And it was a nice thing for Mike to do. Mike enjoys telling people how he was forced into scouting by two parents who insisted, you'll love it. It'll be good for you. You're doing it. But what Mike doesn't tell people is that he was a very shy, introverted child. In fact, whenever the doorbell rang or somebody knocked at the front door, Mike would dive into the hall closet or under the kitchen table because he didn't like people to look at him. Didn't want anybody to look at him. He was so shy. He hated to be the center of attention. I pictured him as a miserable recluse someday. He was a neat freak with such an aversion to dirt. Forget mud puddles, forget mud pies. Mike wouldn't even touch Play-Doh or finger paint. This is so true. In 2010, my husband and I attended the 100th anniversary Boy Scout Jamboree in Fort A.P. Hill, Virginia, where we watched our shy, introverted kid being brought into a huge arena in the bucket of a Caterpillar front-end loader. He was deposited on the stage before 80,000 people, 80,000 Boy Scouts, leaders, dignitaries, guests, where he proceeded to say, "I would not be where I am today were it not for scouting. A scout is clean, but not afraid to get dirty." He told them that he patterned his show Dirty Jobs after the Boy Scout model. Whereas the Boy Scouts achieve their goals through a lens of service, Dirty Jobs achieve their goals through a lens of dirt. It was a good move, committing our son to scouting all those years ago, even if we did have to force him. But there is one thing that they don't tell you, and it's something that everybody in this room knows. When you commit your son to scouting, you're not just committing your son to scouting. You are committing your entire family to scouting. I was so naive. I thought that being a scouting mother meant buying a uniform and driving my son to a meeting once a week and perhaps to other activities. Silly me. Oh, I was even willing to make brownies or cookies for special occasions. In no time, our other two sons, Scott and Phil, wanted to join Webelos and Cub Scouts. It was easier for them because they wanted to emulate their older brother. Anything that Mike did, they wanted to do. So, in no time at all, I found myself sewing badges and patches onto 4 uniforms because, of course, by that time, I was a den leader. It was like being a teacher again, planning weekly meetings and activities, field trips for 7 or 8 little boys who descended onto our basement every Tuesday afternoon, whether I was ready or not. My husband was an active member of the committee. He was also the institutional representative since Troop 16 met and continues to meet at our church, the Kenwood Presbyterian Church. So John was the liaison between scouting and the church. We were both merit badge counselors, of course. No more carefree weekends for the Rose. When there wasn't hiking, camping, canoeing, kayaking, rafting, spelunking, John was whittling chunks of balsa wood into racing cars. He was loading newspapers to be recycled into our station wagon. He was loading huge boxes of oranges into the station wagon from Florida that the boys had sold to neighbors. A court of honor was a mixed blessing. I was proud of the children's accomplishments, thoroughly proud. At the same time, I looked at the pile of patches and badges that were ready to be sewn on. There was a recruiting poster on our church bulletin board. And at one committee meeting, I remember this one particular committee meeting, where I raised my hand and I said, "We really need to add a truth in advertising clause to that recruiting poster on the bulletin board. We need to say something about parental involvement because some parents just didn't get it. They really believed that dropping their child off was the only way to go." I raised my hand again to suggest, I said, "I really think that the first merit badge a Boy Scout should earn is the sewing merit badge."